Good afternoon, dear colleagues. My name is Ekaterina, and I'm a methodologist in the Sky Corporate Department. And as you see on your screens, we are going to talk about teaching grammar, one of the most important things in teaching English. Important and controversial, I would say. We are going to talk about CCQ and what it means. We are going to discuss stages of the lesson when teaching grammar. And of course, I hope that you will find new useful information for yourself. And the most important thing that I hope you will use it at your lessons. So let's begin. And we will begin with the question that I've been asking myself for so long. Do we need to teach grammar and why? So there are so many different approaches to teaching the language, not only English, teaching languages at all. Many studies, and some of them say that teaching grammar is not a natural thing to do. Because when children start speaking the language, any language, they don't know anything about grammar. And after a certain time, when they go to school, at a certain age, they start learning grammar. And not all native speakers know grammar, know what they are, know what they're saying, what construction they use, and it's not natural. Yeah, if you start even in Russian, if you start speaking. If you start the sentence and then it's like, okay, so I'm talking about past, so I need to use like the second form of the verb, and that second form of the verb fly is this, so I need to, yeah, it's not natural, and the language should come, so people should pick up the language, let's say it like this. There is a lexical approach to teaching grammar. But some people, of course, think that teaching grammar is the basic knowledge, that the grammar is the basic knowledge, and teaching grammar is one of the most important things about teaching language. And as for me, I think I'm trying to combine these two approaches. I'm trying to understand my student, and of course our students, most of them, the biggest part of them, they don't live in an English-speaking environment, in an English-speaking country, so it's very difficult for them to pick up the language unless they travel a lot, unless they watch and read only English news and only English TV programs and shows. So it's very, very difficult for them to understand certain grammar construction. So that's why we need to teach grammar. But of course, you need to remember that teaching grammar doesn't have to be a monotonous lecture. It has to be an interaction with your student. It has to be your student's work, first of all, and you as a mentor, as a teacher, as the leader of the process, just give your student directions where to go. And let's call it a communicative approach, and we are going to talk about communicative approach today. And there are two actually main approaches to teaching English. It's a deductive approach, it's a rule-driven, when you present your student with a rule, and then this rule is followed by examples in which the rule is used. So in simple words, you're just giving your student a short lecture about the grammar construction, about past simple, for example. You tell your student everything he has to know, and then you start doing exercise. And there is another approach, it's called inductive approach, rule discovery. It starts with some examples from a rule, from which a rule is discovered. And again, in simple words, you don't give your student a lecture, quite opposite actually. You give your student different examples, and using these examples, your student tries to discover the rule. And you may find, you may have seen this approach and this kind of exercises on Skyeng platform, and we are going to talk about inductive approach today, as it's proved to be the most effective one. And let's look at the advantages of inductive approach. If you ever ask yourself, why should I ever use inductive approach? So, first of all, the rules that learners discover for themselves are more likely to be remembered, are more likely to fit in their existing mental structures. And you will see it yourself if you try it. Maybe you already tried it and it's proven wrong or right, but anyway, most of the ideas that you give your student directions to discover are more likely to stay with him. On the other hand, if you're giving your student a lecture and you're speaking for 15 minutes, there is a chance that your student will lose you at some point. There is a chance that your student won't listen to you that carefully, will check messages, will think about his work issues, personal issues, and so on. So like this, you interact with your student and you give your student a chance to be the most important part of the lesson. And the second thing is students are more actively involved in the learning process rather than being simply passive recipients. It's what I said before, you need to be more like a guide rather than professor. Yeah, so you need to give your student direction, and your student follows, your student works according to the directions that were given before. Okay, and let's move to example. Let's see how it actually works. So here you will see the example of inductive exercise. And before that, we listened and read. We listened and read the text about Oprah Winfrey with my student, about her life, about her past, about her background, education, career, and so on. And the topic of our lesson today will be grammar. Grammar, past simple of to be. And I asked my student to look at the exercise number 2A and read the sentence. So my student reads the sentence. Oprah's parents were very poor, and at the age of 32, she was a millionaire. And after that, I ask my students simple questions. If this sentence is in the present, now, or past, and if these verbs was and were plural or singular form. After that, when we discovered that were is for many, was is for one, we moved to the second stage, and the second stage will be comparison. And it's always a good idea to refer to the knowledge that your student already has. Refer to the knowledge that you gave and you discovered before. As in the exercise B, it's present simple, it's present tense of be. It's is and are, and your student already knows everything about it at this point. He knows how to make negative sentences, he knows how to make questions. And now we just need to compare it. We just need to see and show that it's basically the same, but in the past. The construction that we use is the same, but in the past. So I'm asking my student to look at the exercise 2B, read the sentences that are given in the table, in the present table. My student reads the sentences. And after that, I'm asking him to look at the past table and complete it with was and were. And of course, after that, I ask my student what is the past form of is, what is the past form of were, oh, sorry, what is the past form of are. And at this point, we already know that the negative form of is isn't. So I may ask my student what is then the negative form of was, and my student says that it wasn't, and what is the negative form of were, is weren't. And again, we already know how to make questions in present tense, so I may ask my student how to make negative, so how to make questions in the past. And my student says that we need to put was or were before the subject. Yeah, we need to say was her grandmother an opera singer, and were her hobbies horse riding and singing. Of course, to do that, we just use the past form. Yeah, so this table. And using this table, we can make negative sentences and we can make questions. Yeah. So if your student already says that her grandmother was an opera singer, you can say, and what about negative sentence? What do you think? And your student says, well, maybe it wasn't. And you say, yeah, maybe. Good job. And the same with weren't, and the same with questions. So you work with the sentences that are given. You don't need to, you don't need to make up new sentences. Okay, and concept checking questions. Let's talk about concept checking questions, CCQ, and what it is. CCQ is all about asking your student, eliciting the information you need. So the questions are the verbs in the present or in the past. Are they singular or plural? They all are concept checking questions. So concept checking questions we use when we need to check how well our student understands a certain rule, how well our students can use it, yeah, how well our students, how accurate our students are with these rules. Concept checking questions should be simple, as simple as possible. They have to be yes/no questions, no open questions, very, very rarely. And of course, concept checking questions has to be clear for both you and your student. So try to simplify them as much as possible. And I'm going to show you the slide from the platform. Where is the present, where the present simple, present continuous tense is being discussed. And I want you to think, I want you to look at the examples here, positive and negative. And take sentence number 3, they are having a party as an example, and to think about possible concept checking questions that you may ask your student while explaining and giving the presentation of this grammar. Okay, and here are they. Here are the examples of concept checking questions. So the sentence is, they are having a party. We need to understand if our student knows how to use it, when to use it appropriately. So we can ask the questions like, is it happening now, right now? And the answer would be yes. Can you see it? Can I actually witness it? Yeah. Is the party finished? No, because it's happening right now. Yeah, I can see it. It's not finished. So, is this past, present, or future? And the answer will be it's present. And of course, during this concept checking questions stage, if your student has questions, your student does not understand what you are saying, what you are asking, and the level of your student is too low to understand. Of course, you may translate something in Russian, but I want to highlight this thing and say that when I say that you may translate something, it doesn't mean that you need to explain everything in Russian, of course. You may translate some things, you may say certain things in Russian, but how you do it? You say it in English first. For example, is this the past, present, or future? And your student looks at you confused, like, I don't know what you're talking about. You can ask this question in Russian. Это о прошедшем времени, настоящем или будущем. Is this the past, present, or future? And your student gives you the answer. So remember, when you're using Russian language during the grammar presentation, you need to use it like English, Russian, English again. Yeah. Okay, so this the concept checking questions. Remember that they have to be simple, they have to be yes, no questions, they have to be as clear as possible, and of course they have to check the concept, they have to check the rule, and they have to give you a clear indication, or rather your student understands the rule or not. Okay, and let's now move to the stages of the lesson. And as you may see, there is a beautiful graph here, now flow chart. So the first stage is present the target language. Present the target language by eliciting and asking CCQ questions, as we discussed before. You need to make sure that your student knows the meaning, the form, and the pronunciation. Meaning is what it means, yeah, when is the appropriate moment to use it. Form, yeah, what type of verb, in which form is used here. What is the negative form? What is the question? What is the short answer? So this is the form. And the pronunciation. Pronunciation is usually skipped, yeah, because it's again practiced during the speech. But I would recommend you to make sure your student knows what is the pronunciation of negative sentences, what is silent, what is stressed, where the intonation goes when we ask the question, does intonation raises or falls. So all these things is the pronunciation section. Yes, so after presenting the language and moving to the second stage, you need to make sure your student knows these three things: meaning, form, and pronunciation. Next, moving to the practice, the target language. It has to be in two stages. It's controlled practice and less controlled practice. Controlled practice is when you're doing exercise together with your student. You give your student directions, and when you see that your student is about to make mistakes, saying, think about that. Yeah, what should be here? And you basically discuss this exercise, go through this exercise with your student. The next stage is less controlled practice. Here you give your student more freedom, so you give him some time, a minute, 2 minutes, depending on the exercise, to do it. And after that, you discuss the mistakes and you discuss the most difficult points, the most difficult tasks. And the final thing is final speaking activity, which is very, very important when we're talking about communicative approach. When we are teaching, presenting grammar, it's one of the most important stages, speaking activity. We need to make sure that our student now knows how to use it in the language, and how to make sentences, and how to talk about his personal experience using this construction. And speaking activity is very helpful in this regard. And you can find a lot of speaking activities after every grammar presentation on the platform. So please don't skip it. Please pay attention to it. It's a very, very important stage. So think about it as the most important stage, and if you skip it, you are not, you haven't completed the grammar presentation lesson. Yes, so speaking activity with beginners and elementary students. With beginner and elementary students, you set this activity in a dialogue. You ask, your student answers, you give your students again directions, maybe help. So you control them most, like you control the conversation, let's say it like this. With the students who are more experienced, intermediate, upper intermediate, advanced especially, speaking activity is usually monologue. So you give your student a topic to talk about. You make sure that your student uses the construction that we just discussed, and your student starts speaking. While your student is speaking, please make sure you don't interrupt your student and you don't correct mistakes. You do delayed error correction. After your student finished, you give a short feedback, say that your student is a very good student, and but some mistakes, but he has made some mistakes. And you move to the notes, for example, and in the notes you write down 3, 4 things where your student made mistakes, and you ask your student to correct the mistakes. And here I would like you to make sure that your student corrects not the random mistakes, but the mistakes that that are somehow related to the topic you discussed, to the grammar topic you discussed. So, and this is all about grammar stages. Let's summarize it. First of all, it's a presentation which includes which includes eliciting and CCQ. It's very important, which includes meaning, form, and pronunciation. So you need to make sure your student knows it. Next, the practice, the target language, it's controlled practice is followed by less controlled practice, and final speaking activity with the feedback and mistakes correction. So this template, this example of lesson plan, you may find if you look at the survival guide, systems focused lesson template. There you will find the most detailed lesson plan with timing, with the stages, with everything that you need to know, that you need to have somewhere and keep somewhere close to you in case that you are a newcomer, you're just starting your English teaching career, and it will help you a lot. Okay, so thank you very much for your attention. Thank you very much for finding time and watching this webinar. I hope you found some new useful information for yourself. I hope that you will use it at your lessons. And my name is Ekaterina. As I already said, if you have any questions, you may find me and send me a message, ask me your question. I will gladly answer it. Okay, thank you very much, dear colleagues. Have a good day all.